Hello, action flick fans. I'm Ryan, your guide through the explosive world of The Empire, a blockbuster that stormed theaters in 2024. Warning, this video is loaded with action-packed spoilers. Fasten your seatbelts, and let's dive into the adrenaline-fueled chaos. Good and evil alien forces vie for control over Earth, with a single child being the key. However, temptation overcomes two enemies, inadvertently triggering a series of events that alters the course of their war. Lean strolls along a beach unclothed, chatting with her boyfriend about her suntan body. She wraps herself in a towel and invites her lover over as she heads back home. Meanwhile, Johnny arrives at the shore, hauls his boat out using his trunk, and races home, passing Lean on his way. He parks the tractor near his home and takes out the sack of crabs he caught. His mother, Mrs. Battelle, greets him, disappointed that he only has one sack. She carries her grandson, Freddie, as Johnny kneels before them. His mother walks away with Freddie. After securing his boat, Johnny heads to the street just as Lean saunters by, asking if he has any reception. He replies affirmatively, mentioning his different service provider, which makes Lean complain about hers. She reveals that she moved to town 3 months ago, and this is the first time they've met. Johnny shares that he has lived here all his life and works as a fisherman. After introducing themselves, Lean continues walking home. She calls her boyfriend again, only for her stepfather to ask for help with groceries as she approaches. She excuses herself, saying she's on the phone, and walks the other way, complaining about her stepfather. After her call, she encounters 3 kids who stand still and bow their heads as she passes. Finding it odd, she keeps going and soon arrives at Johnny's home. She stands straight, then kneels as Johnny's mother holds Freddie by the window. The woman closes the curtains, and Lean exhales. Johnny walks to her, asking what she's doing, but she dodges the question and asks if he is a kid. Johnny confirms, raising his hand and announcing in an alien voice that the Wayne has been born and the mothership is at work propagating the chosen one. After the announcement, Lean leaves as Johnny's ex-wife, Lou, arrives with her boyfriend, Rudy. Lou takes her child to the car, telling Johnny she'll return him in 2 weeks before driving off. During the drive, Lou scolds Rudy for smoking in the car while their son's inside. Rudy assures her that the Wayne is strong since he's his son too. Lou scolds him again, and Rudy pauses, suddenly yanking the steering wheel, causing the car to flip and crash. Rudy crawls out of the wreckage and walks to Lou's body, producing a laser sword and beheading her. He opens the flipped car's door, revealing the unharmed child, then slams his head on the door, knocking himself out. Later, Johnny, joined by 2 officers, watches the news in shock as the reporter details the car crash and Lou's mysterious beheading. That afternoon, Johnny is on horseback, speaking to his knights. One knight thinks the crash was an accident, but Johnny believes it's a smokescreen. When asked what they'll do about it, Johnny declares that the council will decide. The knights argue that the ones won't let the Wayne rule the world and will eliminate him once he matures, along with all of them. Johnny refuses to let that happen, declaring they'll fight them in summer. One knight suggests asking the council about the accident, but Johnny argues that the police are already investigating the beheading. The knights believe the humans won't solve it but accept his decision to fight. Meanwhile, at the crash site, Commandant Veerwin listens to Lieutenant Carpentier yammer about the beheading. Van thinks extremists are responsible, and Carpentier sarcastically praises his intellect, but Van is already inside the car. Elsewhere, Rudy talks to the townsfolk, claiming he doesn't remember anything about Lou's beheading since he was unconscious. The people seem unconvinced. A woman in a swimsuit named Jane approaches, and Rudy excuses himself. He bows to Jane, but she scolds him, not wanting others to see. She asks if Lou's head was neatly severed, and Rudy confirms. Satisfied, Jane reminds him that Lou was demonic and that they must watch over the Wayne and eliminate him when the time comes. Rudy bows again, calling her a princess, but Jane stops him, warning against the Black Knight, Johnny, noting his power. Rudy thinks he can handle Johnny, but Jane tells him to be careful before diving into the sea. Emerging inside a titanic cathedral-like ship in another dimension, Jane reports to an orb of light called the First that Lou has been dispatched, reasoning that Lou was already infected by the Wayne. The First acknowledges her actions and declares their intent to eradicate the Zero from Earth to prevent its corruption. The next day, Lean takes a break in front of Johnny's home. He catches her, commenting on how she's always around. They kiss passionately before Johnny commands her to stay vigilant and watch out for the ones. That afternoon, Johnny and a knight ride into a forested area, leading them to the Zero's mothership. They kneel before a black floating figure named Babbo, reporting that the Wayne is alive and well and that humans are unaffected by the one's promise of virtue. The black figure warns them against the heroes and saints within the humans, commanding them to find a body for it to inhabit and visit the Wayne. As Johnny returns home, he passes Lean and her stepfather in a car on their way to shop. Elsewhere, Rudy asks Jane when she'll take him to the mothership. Jane explains their duty to stay on Earth to improve humans, with the only other choice being the void. A beachgoer approaches calmly, but Jane alerts Rudy that it's a foe. The man brandishes his laser blade and beheads the beachgoer. Jane pushes Rudy back as the body dissolves into black goo. Rudy asks how she could tell between Zeros and humans, and Jane answers that unlike the evil Zeros, humans are neither good nor evil. Another day, Lean runs to Johnny in a panic, suffering a seizure. He holds her down, assuring her that she's turning into one of them. She calms down, and Johnny helps her up. Besides turning Lean, Johnny witnesses Babbo's possession of an age tour guide, allowing him to walk on Earth. Babbo meets the child outside Johnny's house, with Johnny's mother thinking he's their godfather. After meeting the Wayne, Babbo returns to the mothership and changes clothes, sitting on his throne and signaling musicians to play music, prompting distorted black figures to dance. His party is interrupted by an alarm, and a black mass reports that the ones are about to attack. Babbo commands them to face the forces head-on, believing that when good weakens, evil grows strong. On Earth, Rudy asks Jane when he'll fully turn into a one, and she assures him it's almost time. The princess suddenly senses Johnny approaching, the fisherman walking with Lean and a crowd, blocking their enemies. Jane warns Rudy not to be reckless since Johnny is powerful and Lean could defeat him even if she's incomplete. Jane assures him they won't back down regardless. On the beach, Johnny relaxes, grumbling about Jane's arrogance, though admitting it makes him want her. Lean smacks him in response. Later, Jane trains Rudy in sword fighting. He struggles while his mother, Giselle, scolds him for being noisy. In the One's mothership, entities of light debate their influence on Earth. Upon learning evil still proliferates, the middle ones decide to visit Earth. A smaller ship exits the mothership and arrives on Earth. Johnny witnesses this from his boat and goes ashore to investigate. Jane runs to the landing ship, escorting the Queen as she arrives. They pass Lean's house, and Jane points out that only the daughter is influenced, not her stepfather. The Queen states they must invade Earth to cleanse it of Zero's evil. Jane kneels in acknowledgement. Meanwhile, Babbo watches the one ship attempt to crash into them. He commands his agent to veer left, dodging the ship. The agent asks if they're retreating, but Babbo wants them to think so to make their actions unpredictable. On Earth, an agent informs the Queen of the Zeros fleeing the battle. She laments their cowardice and tells Rudy the Wayne must be eliminated before his evil proliferates. Mrs. Battelle approaches, pushing the Wayne on a carriage, complaining to the mayor about their broken water meter. The Queen acknowledges her complaint while the Wayne stares at her. Johnny examines the Queen's ship entrance but hides when she and Jane approach. He follows Jane as she leaves, boldly offering to sleep with her. She falls into temptation, and they do it in the open field. Later, Lean visits Johnny, questioning his whereabouts last night. Johnny claims he was home and comments on seeing the Queen, thinking the ones are afraid. Lean doesn't care, making mocking gestures to entertain the Wayne. Jane and Rudy watch, with Rudy itching to beat them. Jane shushes him. After Johnny and Lean leave, Rudy sneaks into the house, the Queen watching through their cathedral mothership display. Rudy rushes out with the Wayne, fleeing with Jane on a motorcycle. Mrs. Battelle shouts to Johnny that his son has been taken. Alarmed, Johnny rushes but they're long gone. Authorities are informed, and Carpentier and Van investigate. Johnny asks what they've found, but they have nothing yet. Johnny visits Babbo, still in human form. Babbo acknowledges the advantages and assures Johnny they'll find the Wayne, as evil always propagates through circumstance. He commands Johnny to seek his son and bring him back to his grandmother. Johnny returns to Earth with his knights, storming into Jane's house and emerging with Freddy. Jane and Rudy shout, with Jane blaming Rudy for not protecting her and the Wayne. Johnny takes his son to a car with his mother, telling her to be careful. Jane reminds Johnny of their war, but he doesn't care, kissing her to prove his influence. Jane breaks into tears and runs away, reporting their failure to the Queen. The Queen scolds her, declaring they must triumph, ordering her to fight evil. Jane sees Johnny and his knights moving out, chasing after them to see where they're heading, then returns to town. She and Rudy witness hundreds of ships flying across the sky, sparking the Zero's invasion. Jane leads Rudy to the One's mothership altar, watching Johnny through the display as the final battle begins. In the Zero's mothership, Johnny reports the Wayne is safe and their forces are ready. Their leader exclaims it's time for battle, celebrating the knights who guarded the Wayne and scouted Earth. He declares humans now belong to them. Johnny pilots a fighter ship, leading the armada near the town. Jane and Rudy board their fighter ship, joining the squadrons. Their ship takes a last pass over the fields before flying to space. Carpentier and Van loiter near Johnny's household, unable to solve any mysteries. Lean passes by, dismissing them as she's going to the beach. In space, the Zero's armada faces off with the One's. Johnny's and Jane's forces approach each other, causing a black hole to manifest. Panicked, Rudy asks what's happening. Jane speculates their connection has caused their forces to converge. The black hole swallows both armadas, vanishing with a flash of light, ending their war. On Earth, Carpentier and Van lay on the ground as the black hole's force lifts their car, creating a windstorm. When it disappears, their car drops back. Mrs. Battelle comes out with the Wayne on a carriage, scolding the men for the noise. Unable to explain, they excuse themselves and board their destroyed car. The Wayne babbles that it's the end,